Eighth Grade, which is filmed by Burnham, who describes himself as an internet comedian turned filmmaker. You may well have come across Burnham stuff before, whether it's his comedy specials or things like his video for repeat stuff, which is just absolutely brilliant. And this is a film that it's been around in America for quite a long time. At the end of the year, there were a lot of plaudits for it. Barack Obama included it in his list of the films that he enjoyed most of 2018. It was celebrated by the likes of Molly Ringwald. And it is a coming-of-age story about a young teenager, brilliantly played by Elsie Fisher. We are introduced to her at the beginning of the film. She is somebody who is socially anxious. She has great difficulty in connecting with her peers in school. We see a shot of her walking through the corridor of her school where everybody else appears to be walking the other way, and there is a sense of isolation. And she is coming towards the end of this middle school period, and she is, racked with insecurity in that particular world. However, she has another life, a second life, an online life in which she posts cute selfies of how she imagines her life should be. And she also runs a video blog giving people advice on how to be yourself, on how to put yourself out there, on how to be more confident. The fact that nobody appears to be watching the vlog at all, we see the view counts 1, 2, 0, 5, 7, is significant, but it's equally significant that it's essentially that she appears to be using those channels to talk to herself, that they have actually become the way in which she is able to talk about the anxieties that are with which she's struggling. She lives at home with her single father, whose attention she basically sort of screens out by keeping her earphones in all the time, and doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't want to connect with him because, again, she's constantly with her phone. And at one point in the film, there is a moment in which these young kids have to spend some time with, at bigger school, with older kids who offer perhaps a version of what life may become. Here is a scene from about midway through the film in which she is hanging out with some of those older kids.
Are you bored, Kayla?
Huh?
You look bored.
I'm not bored.
Try to stop.
What? No, I'm not judging her. It's fine. We're bored of her. She's a different generation than us.
She's
right
not a
to be
different
bored.
generation.
Yeah, she is.
She's 4 years younger than us. I mean,
Okay, but people who are like 4 years older than us felt like 50 years old.
it's like blatantly not
Your
true.
sister?
My sister just sucks.
Okay, but like, on top of that, she didn't have Twitter in middle school, and we did. That made us different.
Kayla, you're not different than us.
Yeah. When did you get Snapchat? What grade?
5th grade?
Fifth grade?
Oh.
What? Yo, see?
Wait, so were kids like sending each other like nudes in like 5th grade?
No,
like,
okay, that is a weird question.
That's like
No,
a
that
religion.
is.
That
That's
is
what
a
people
like,
use
that is a
Snapchat
weird
for.
question. I don't
That's
think
She
she's
sees in
People
fifth
can
grade.
just, like-
She's like wired differently.
She's not wired different.
I love that the discussion of, that 4 years difference is a generational difference. Receiving one of several awards for Eighth Grade, Bo Burnham said that it was a film about the generation, the post-millennial, sometimes referred to as Generation Z, who have been raised in a culture they did not create, but which demands that they hold their life up for judgment online. He said these are kids that we have been told are self-obsessed. They are not. They are self-conscious. And I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the difference between mid-90s, the John Hill, and Kids, the Larry Clark film. And I said the difference is that Kids appears to be made by somebody going, oh, God, look at kids, look at all this stuff they're doing. Whereas mid-90s appeared to be made by somebody who actually understood the world that it was depicting. In the case of Eighth Grade is one of the most empathetic and compassionate films I have seen in living memory. It is clearly a film made by somebody who has listened to the people that he is depicting, and by somebody who has paid attention to what their life is like, somebody who cares profoundly and deeply for the central characters. As I said, in this central character, brilliantly played by Elsie Fisher, you have this character of Kayla who is very, very socially anxious, but also is living in this world in which she has to put herself out there online, and yet somehow is using that, the relationship between her phone and her, the phone screen and the world is one of the ways in which she talks to herself. The film is really alternately very, very funny. I mean, Bo Burnham comes from a background in comedy, and he really understands how to orchestrate a comedic set piece. But it is also utterly heartbreaking in that, like Gregory's Girl, it knows exactly how to depict a certain moment in adolescence which can be unbelievably painful. And we see in Kayla's physicality, in her facial expressions, often because when she's in class, she's voted most quiet. And yet the way in which she holds her shoulders, the way in which her hair shrouds her face, the way in which when we see her being voted most quiet, and the expression on her face speaks volumes about everything that is going on, this inner life that this character has, that at the very beginning of the film, we see her making one of her blogs in which she says, people think I'm quiet, but what they don't know is if they got to know me, they would discover that I'm funny and cool, and I've got all this other stuff going on. And the other thing that I think is really important about this film, which it's such a wonderful film because it's touching and heartbreaking and tender and truthful, and it has pinpoint accuracy about the culture that it's depicting. I mean, these aren't sort of bland adult generalizations. It seems to me to be completely inside the world that it's depicting. But the other thing about it is that there are moments of great darkness, great pain, great isolation. I mean, anyone who had felt isolated as a kid, which I think is probably every kid ever, will recognize themselves in it. One of the geniuses of it is that although it's very specific about its time, that it is about a particular generation who grew up in a particular world with a particular internet culture and social media culture around them, like all great coming-of-age movies, it's a movie that makes you think it's about you. It's a movie that makes you think, I grew up in a completely different world, in a different country, in a different culture, in a different gender, a different nationality, whatever it is, but I understand what that character is feeling, because it's that thing about you take care of the specifics and the generalities will take care of themselves. But it also, and there are, as I said, moments of great darkness, moments in which her character is threatened by the predatory nature of other characters around her. And Bo Burnham, incidentally, does a brilliant job of judging just how far to push any particular scene in terms of its darkness or its. But the other thing that's really important about it is there is kindness and there is joy and there is the lurking underbelly of friendship and a potential better future. So it's not a film made by somebody going, look at this, it's terrible. It's a film made by somebody who's saying that you feel things at that age at an intensity that is absolutely all-consuming, and who absolutely empathizes with and understands the central character. And it has a score by Anna Meredith, which is absolutely brilliant, which does a fantastic job of getting us inside the kind of the world of this character, from the spiraling anxieties to the sort of the aspirations, and also the sort of the plastic artificiality of some of the circumstances. I mean, you would love it. To anyone with a beating heart would love it.
And I'm included in that.
Yeah, anyone with a beating heart, and you, and Simon, would love it.
Thank you.